Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are talking once again about your marketing strategy and your approach to your firm's marketing. We here at Spotlight Branding, if you followed us for any amount of time, we've talked a lot before about how the marketing industry kind of had this weird shift once the internet kind of became a mainstay in our lives, and people just kind of abandoned a lot of the marketing principles and strategies that had been working perfectly for really hundreds of years and that continue to still work today, but most people just abandon it for a increased focus on search engines and algorithms and keywords and stuff like that. And while that does have its place, there's still so much out there that you can do to market your firm that still works, that has always worked. And this week, I'm joined by someone who's been in the marketing and legal industry for several years, works specifically in the ADR space, and does a lot of work with firms in that regard. And I'll let her talk a little bit about that here. But that we are joined by Natalie Armstrong-Motin. Thanks for joining us.
Gosh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So, like I said, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about your background, what you do for a living, and why we're here to talk about marketing today.
Sure, happy to. This is the easiest thing in the world for me to talk about. It's my passion. For
Yeah.
gosh, working on 3 decades, 27 years, I've helped mediators and arbitrators all over the world to design and promote their practices. And I absolutely love what I do all day, every day. It's just the best community of humans.
Yeah. And so I think, kind of starting when we're talking about marketing, especially in the legal industry, but really for uh, other kinds of, professional services, there's always seemed to have been a lack of trust between consumer and business owner. And I know that you talk a lot about that. And for us, I think it's a really foundational part of the marketing strategy. But I mean, in your own opinion, why is it important to establish that trust and credibility, early on when it comes to marketing a firm?
I think uh, any any service industry, but in particular, those of us who have a fiduciary responsibility to our client, or those of us who are serving as neutrals on those cases, we really truly only get hired first, of course, when somebody knows we exist.
Mhm.
Secondly, they have to like us. They have to like what they know about us. And that's why networking is so imperative. Social proofing is so imperative. Doing podcasts, videos, those kinds of things. It lets people, in an odd, funny, unilateral way, it lets people get to know us or have the sense that they've had an interaction with us. And those things lead to them having a sense about us and a sense that they could trust us with their case, with their problem, their conflict, their issue, their pain point. And that is absolutely key. There are very, very few service providers globally who have built a business being a jerk.
Right.
That just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we have to have the sense that people, or rather, people have to have the sense about us that they can trust us.
Yeah. And so, you kind of mentioned a couple of things, but I'll ask this question in a different way just to make sure that people really get this point. But like, how does a firm go about establishing that trust and credibility? Like, how do you break down that barrier of someone who has this very serious issue, or at least in their mind is like the most serious thing that they could ever face? And how does a firm establish that trust? What kinds of things can they do to break down that barrier and make it clear that they can be trusted with such a serious matter?
That's a really fair question. And I think the key thing that we can do is communicate.
Mm,
Most people don't have these kinds of problems very often in their lives. They don't get to
yeah.
watch this kind of thing roll out in front of them on a regular basis. This being in conflict, being in a lawsuit, being in a mediation, being in an arbitration, these are not their normal situations. This is not a vocabulary that is part of their primary language. And this
Yeah.
isn't something that they get to see on Law and Order.
Yeah.
and it's scary to them. So for us, this is a regular day's duties. For them, it is full of anxiety and stress and fear and pain and upset and discord. And so for firms, for independent attorneys, mediators, and arbitrators, the thing that I think we can do best is in our website language, in our LinkedIn profiles, in the speeches we give, the trainings we provide, the networking we do, our social media posts. If we simply use the language that expresses how we absolutely understand firsthand all of those issues, we get it. We know you're awake all night. We know that one of the primary 4 food groups that you consume is Tums. We understand that these things put relationships in jeopardy. We get that you may or may not lose your business at the end of the day, or custody of your children at the end of the day, or these are chasms that are scary and monsters lie in them. So if
Yeah.
we can communicate that we get that, and then say, but here's the easy way out, here's the solution, here's how we can fix that, here's how we can get to the other side of the chasm.
Yeah.
Let me guide you through it. And so if we can show in our communication the challenges that people are facing and then help them with the possible solutions, that's the best way, I think, for us to establish that we get it and we can help. And that leads to trust.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I think one of the biggest hurdles that I've seen is I think a lot of firm owners get that and they understand it, but I think a lot of times they go about it, they still end up going about it not in the most efficient way. And what I mean by that is whether it's blog articles that they're writing or videos they're producing or whatever it is, they feel almost a sort of pressure to logic their way into building that trust and really showing, going through every single if then situation, getting really deep into the weeds to try to show that expertise, rather than kind of what you were getting at is making that emotional connection. Is that kind of what you've seen? And how do you go about telling people, like, it's okay to stay more surface level and really focus more on the emotional connection rather than trying to cover every single possible scenario to make sure that people know that they have the experience to handle a situation?
So I think that when you look at any survey that has been taken of clients, what they dislike most about our services is when they have been made to feel as though they're just a file, just a case
Yeah.
number. They don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, and they don't think that their story makes any difference. And one of the key forms of communication for humans is storytelling. It is one of the oldest forms of communication that we have. It's why we love movies and books and blogs and Facebook. It's because we
Yeah.
get to see some personal storytelling. So in your marketing, remember that you're talking to humans, not a case. This isn't a white paper. This isn't a brief. This is a person on the other end that reads it. And what they're looking for from you is in some way to either identify themselves and say, oh yeah, this lawyer, she's exactly right for me. Or they want to disqualify themselves and say, oh yeah, no, that's not my case at all. They want to find themselves or not in your storytelling. And when we're telling stories, I work with my clients to create a production schedule so
Yeah.
that we, with intent, say, this is the article that we're going to write, and it serves this very specific purpose. And this is the video that we're going to record, and it reinforces this very specific idea. And these are the social media posts that we're going to create, and they each one say they express a single idea. So we don't go into, these are 50 things that we think are bothersome to you. We go one by one by one by one. One, that gives us more content, but two, it proves to the viewer, to the reader, that we truly do think about them. They are the priority. We get the marketing credit for it because we created it.
Yeah.
But what we want to prove is that we hear them, we see them, we get them.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the bigger things too that I think often doesn't get recognized enough is going that route saves you so much more time because you're keeping it surface level rather than spending hours upon hours trying to craft this perfect blog article or articulate every single thing you want in a video. And all that time is freed up for you to spend on what you would be doing to get paid. So now you're saving time and you're allowing, you're giving yourself more capacity to make more money in the end. So your marketing becomes that much more effective for you.
Exactly right. And it also eases your anxiety as the service provider because you're no longer wondering, am I delivering? Am I doing it right? Have I got my message? What am I really talking about? It takes muddy water and turns it into, crystal clear, drinkable, yummy, good stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that it helps both ends of the communication line. It helps us as providers. We have a clear message in mind. We have a clear idea about what we need to research and then produce. We have a clear group of periodicals that we subscribe to. We have a clear list of podcasts that we listen to. And we have a clear message that we're trying to put forward to our prospective clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you talked a lot about storytelling. To me, especially you mentioned like that's just it's how we've kind of communicated. It's what we enjoyed, and it's worked that way for centuries and millennia. It's just it's how we as humans have been able to communicate in advance and all that. I would consider that kind of an old school kind of marketing tactic, right? On top of that, like, is there anything else, that's quote unquote old school that still works today, that worked, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s prior to the internet, that still works today? And then on top of that, how can you use modern technology to make those sorts of things even more effective?
I think there is a really happy marriage between old school and modern tech.
Yeah.
And it is up to each of us to find our comfort zone within both of those realms of existence.
Yeah.
So for those old school tactics that work best in my experience, and this has never changed, I doubt that it will. What we really like as consumers is when the service provider expresses an appreciation for us having paid them money, for having bought their time, purchased their experience, done business with them. And it doesn't take a lot for us to be able to do that. An easy thing to do is just send a thank you card to your clients, just a handwritten postcard in the mail. If, as part of your intake procedure and it fits your practice brand, you've
Yeah.
acquired their birthday, send them a birthday card. Send them a holiday greeting card. And it doesn't really make any difference. It's that personal touch. One or two sentences, sign your name, lick a stamp, put it in the mailbox. That counts for so much.
Yeah.
Networking face to face for business connections, business clients, going to the bar association functions, those things really matter. And in networking, you always make it about the other person and not about you. It's the
Yeah.
easiest conversation in the world for you to have. Focus on them, not yourself. And it doesn't have to be a conversation about your business or business at all. It could be about your
Yeah.
most recent golf game. It doesn't make any difference. And you want to combine that human interaction. Be polite when you answer the phone. Answer emails as promptly as you can. Send a thank you card. All of those things that we learned in kindergarten. Listen, pay
Yeah.
attention, be generous, say please, say thank you. Those things really, really matter. And then when you combine that with modern technology, so for example, if you have the kind of practice that would benefit from online calendaring, so that when someone is up at 2 o'clock at night and they're worried and they're concerned and they're searching for answers, they can book a time with you. You don't
Yeah.
have to be present for that. They can just click a link on your website and know that, oh, I can go to bed now because I've got an 8 a.m. appointment with John and he's going to fix this for me, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of technology really helps. Then having the technology to provide to them in an easy, digestible, piece by piece format, your convening forms, your case intake forms, all of that kind of thing really helps. And if you can record a video just a short video that says, hello, new client.
Yeah.
Welcome to firm A, B, and C. We really appreciate your business. Our goal here is to do the best we can for you. And that we can be aided in that process if you would simply fill out the following forms to the best of your ability. Don't hurt your brain, but fill them out as best you can and send them back to us. And if you send the video file when you send those forms, again, they get to see your face, hear
Yeah.
your voice, and feel like you've really gone the extra effort to record a personalized video for them.
Yeah.
So all of those little high-tech things complement our ability to connect in a very real way with clients on a human level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another big key for me in terms of like old school stuff is the idea of word of mouth, right? That's how so many businesses were able to market themselves prior to even like radio or even before television or even before telephone. Like, how else were you going to get the word out? It's making sure that you're providing great service so that people say great things about you, but it's also making sure that you're remaining top of mind. And your point about the thank you cards, the birthday cards, it's a great way to stay top of mind. And I think, especially when you're talking about marrying it with newer tech, one of the things that we say is still really super effective is just a simple email newsletter. And, especially to tie into what we've talked about before, having that sort of content piece that makes that emotional connection as the focal point of your newsletter. So you're just reminding people, this is what we do. This is how we help. These are, this is what we understand about the situations that people are facing. And it's that top of mind awareness that builds that word of mouth that then allows people to, and at that point, you don't have to worry about search engines or algorithms nearly as much because you're still able to capitalize on the same sort of marketing strategies that have always worked up to this point.
So true. And I think that the use of these various tech pieces is going to depend on who your primary or your secondary or tertiary target markets are. So if you're dealing with the general public, if that is your client, then truly the more old school is going to benefit you more.
Yeah.
If it's business to business, then you definitely want to be on LinkedIn. You should absolutely have a newsletter and an
Yeah.
email strategy set forward. You should absolutely be posting on social media 2, 3, 5 times per week. You should absolutely be engaged in other forms of communication in writing, speaking, training, networking, use of tech, all of those things. So it really will depend whether or not you're talking to the general public as being your primary target market or if it's B2B. But overall, the sense of what we do, that real connectivity and using the psychological term is priming, using priming, keeping us top of mind, you can't beat it with a stick. And a lot of clients, I think, really have an expectation that, oh, well, I sent an email newsletter, but my phone didn't ring. Well, it's not the one thing that makes the business work. It's the cumulative effect of doing lots of different things over a long period of time. I'm always a little, I'd like to say I'm surprised, but I've grown out of that. I'm not surprised anymore at how often I get a call or an email that says, hi, can you create a YouTube video for me that will go viral?
Yeah.
No, I can't do that. No, I'm sorry.
Right.
I can't help you. Or they'll say, I have $1,000 to market and promote my practice. Can you stretch that out over the next year? No, I can't. This is a marathon, and it really is the exponential that we're looking for, not the arithmetic. So
Yeah, I agree with that. And one thing that I kind of point at is, yes, there's no such thing as instant gratification in marketing. Like, the best results are going to take time, and you have to build that momentum. I do think that if you want to shrink that runway and decrease that amount of time by a couple of months or two, you can't just dip your toe in the water, right? Like, you have to go all in and like you said, diversify, have several different outlets, quantity, you're going to see results quicker posting 5 times a week on social media versus 2. You need to do one or the other, but the more you post, the more likely it will be that you will see, some return on that sooner rather than later. And so, yeah, I completely agree with those thoughts there. One other thing I wanted to ask you about before we wrap up, I know a big part of your business and what you help people with is you are really passionate about helping firms transition from litigation to more resolution based solutions. Why is that important to you, and what sorts of opportunities does that provide for a law firm, especially when it comes to how they market themselves?
It is for some people, it's a really easy transition, depending on your personality, obviously, and the kind
Mhm.
of law that you've practiced. For others, it's a big challenge. So I do work with clients to help them determine what kind of ADR training do they need to have. Maybe it's an LLM, or maybe it's just a 40-hour court-approved program. So we look forward and then we reverse engineer back to today what has to happen. So we get the training situated. We talk about the business, the entrepreneurship end of it. Are you going to go solo? Are you taking people with you? Are you joining another firm? Are you going to join a panel or a roster like jams or AAA or signature resolution? What
Mhm.
is your plan for growth? And are you okay with the fact that it's going to take you 18 months to 2 years to make it happen?
Mhm.
How many cases do you really want? Do you want to answer the phone yourself? No, you need to go to Case Manager Services Incorporated. Do you want a podcast, but you don't want to learn how to do it? Great. You need to call Veronica Cravener and she will take care of that for you. Do you want to establish a YouTube channel? You call me. Do you want to do your own posts? Fine. So we talk about all of those things necessary.
Yeah.
We also talk, though, about the mindset that is necessary. Because for a lot of lawyers, not all, it is a challenge to move from a gladiator mindset
Mhm.
to a resolutionist mindset. And after you've been an advocate for one side for a really long amount of time, now you have to completely switch gears and be a neutral. So in a law firm marketing scenario, we promote, we protect, we defend, we search, we hunt. We can use those kinds of words. As neutrals, on the other hand, though, we can't use those kinds of verbs. And we have to help clients, both plaintiff and defense, understand that we help them as the neutral to find a durable, reasonable resolution for themselves. And
Mhm.
changing that perception of the world, changing that mindset is a big challenge for a lot of people. But also, if you've been in a firm and you've been pretty cozy there, moving to a solo practice, mediation, or arbitration business for yourself requires that you now are the business person. You're the
Mhm.
entrepreneur. So not only do you have the day job of mediating or arbitrating, but you also have a day job of building your business, doing all of the marketing, doing all of the research, and it's a lot to take in. And so I think that some of my clients struggle with how big the job is to start a
Mhm.
practice away from a law firm and into ADR. And a lot of that can be minimized and a lot of it can be outsourced. And so if you're thinking about moving from litigation to resolution and it's scary, even to the point of paralyzing you from wanting to make that move, just give me a call and we'll talk through all of those steps and we can talk about how you pick and choose the things that you're okay to do on your own, the things that need to be outsourced, or the things maybe that don't need to be done at all, really,
Yeah.
because it can be a big, daunting move.
Yeah, and one of the questions that I had, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but like I just kind of see these things, from an observational standpoint. I think some lawyers, they are wired and they truly enjoy that litigation. They love going to court. They love arguing, and I have people out here blowing leaves. I don't know if it's coming through on the microphone, but I apologize for that. But I also know that a lot of the stress and burnout and mental health issues that plague the legal industry come from people who are constantly litigating. Have you seen, is there any sort of connection there between making that transition from litigating to ADR? Have you seen, you know, any kind of change in improving someone's kind of quality of life and mental health and happiness, getting out of that litigation space and becoming more of an ADR firm?
I actually do, yes. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way before. What an interesting question. The one of the more common responses that I get from litigators, trial lawyers, moving into ADR is they can just control their calendar. And I know that seems like kind of a small thing, but it means that they can have every Friday off if they want. Or maybe you really don't like Mondays, or maybe Tuesday is your Monday and you don't want to work a Tuesday. You're in total control of your calendar to a great degree. That kind of flexibility is such a luxury. Additionally, when you're not fighting and advocating for just one perspective, just one side, in the resolution industry, as a member of a neutral community, it's just the loveliest community of humans, everyone supporting everyone else. And because most of us are solo practitioners, we really do get together. We really do rely on the human interaction from our colleagues to keep ourselves moving and going and staying happy and staying above those kinds of personal issues. It's a very supportive group, and there's not a great deal of backbiting and competition. We don't keep score. We don't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that for an individual who is stressed by being a gladiator, the resolution industry is a great way to turn that volume down, slow things down, and do good work with lots of good people.
Awesome. Love it. So how can people reach out to you, get in touch, and learn more about the ways that you can help?
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can search for Marketing Resolution. You can search for my name, Natalie Armstrong-Motin, Motin. It's French. I know it's weird. You can find me on YouTube at Marketing Resolution, on Twitter, or you can just look at my website, how to market my mediation practice.com. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll have all that information in the show notes. Before we wrap up here, one final question for you. If you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I can offer is to think like a business person. It is the difference in a mindset between you trying to build a mediation practice or mediating as your next job. It's a mindset. So if you listen to podcasts like this about marketing, entrepreneurship, and business, and build a business, be serious about it. It's not always about mediating. A lot of your day job is about building a practice, building a business. So go to marketing seminars, read marketing books, read books about entrepreneurship, go to those seminars, listen to those podcasts, watch those videos. And if you can just start your day with a few minutes of that kind of content, your practice will grow much more quickly in a direction that is much more satisfactory to you.
Love it. Yes. And that, I mean, obviously that helps us both out but it also helps you listening out there out and build the practice that you want to give yourself the life that you want. And honestly, as much as it helps us grow our business, like truly, and it's not just lip service saying this, like we really do enjoy seeing people kind of get to that point where they can live their dream life and live the life they wanted when they started their own business at the start. So good stuff as always, Natalie. A lot of great information here. It's always good when I walk away learning some different stuff from the things that our guests say. So I really do appreciate that. Thank you all for continuing to listen. Please leave a rating and review wherever you're consuming the show. And that's going to do it. Natalie, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. And thanks so much to Spotlight for all the great content.